Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Okay, today I'm going to answer a couple of questions for my young protege, Dakota in the Woods. Because Dakota has recently started working on flint and steel firecraft, of learning how to do that. And so he's asked me to do kind of a little tutorial to help answer some questions. And so that's what this is going to be. I'm going to share this with you. Now let me give you a little bit about my background. For those of you that are new to the channel and don't know, for 25 plus years I did live in history. And that means that I did, you know, the guys that do the Civil War reenactment, well, I was 100 years before them. I was French and Indian War, Revolutionary War, Mountain Man era, all of that. Anywhere from, about 1735 up until about 1840. Anywhere in that time period. I started out in the Mountain Man area and I slowly progressed back. And since when you're doing this type of camping, you have to use what they used in that time period. And so flint and steel was by far one of the most common methods of starting a fire. So I got quite a bit of experience playing with flint and steel firework. So let's talk just a second about that. Alright. The first thing that I want you to understand is that flint does matter. What kind of flint, how big it is it dark flint or is it tan light colored flint? This dark English flint is by far the best. It is the hardest and it throws the spark best. Next is your fire steel of some kind. Now there are all kinds of shapes and designs for it, but those that are getting started, bigger is better, because small ones require more precision and more experience to do properly. Now this was called back in my day a J fire steel. See that little curly queuing right there? A lot of times guys would hang something on it and they would slide it like a belt buckle or something into hold something, put a little cord in there so you could pull it out and open a pouch or something. A lot of guys did that in the day. This is a more modern one that was made by my good friend Dan Lutz. It was a tool he was developing before his untimely death. It had a divot in it for doing bow drill. It had a fire striker. It had a chisel and wedge so it could be used for chiseling wood. It had a cord on it so it could be used as a recovery hook to hang gear and pull up. This never went into production. But when holding it, this is the face that's going to strike the flint. Now understand what is happening. Flint is harder than steel. Steel is more elastic than rubber. You just got to hit something hard enough to make it flex. Okay? So whenever I hit this against this rock, what it's going to do is it's actually going to scratch and cut the steel. It's going to grab the steel. Imagine in your mind taking a rubber-coated chuck, an old eraser. Remember the old big old erasers we used to use in school? Take one of those erasers and hit a saw with it. How it would gouge the eraser, well, that's what it's doing. And the little pieces of eraser that would fly off, that is the tiny pieces of high carbon steel coming off of this steel. They are being torn loose. The action of tearing them loose causes them to become extremely hot, and for a brief second they glow and throw off a great deal of heat, because the amount of friction versus their size, it heats up very quickly. Now that's greatly simplified, but that's the idea. Now this J hook right here, it's something that you hook the fingers in like that and then you put the thumb up there. Now notice my knuckles are awful close. Okay? That's the thing about it. You got to get a hold of something, and this is a way you can do it as well. Hook it on your fingers like that. But it's got to be something that when I hit it, it's not going to slide out of my hand. More importantly, I can't crowd up on it, because see how close that is? That razor sharp piece of rock is going to do that. And you can tear the snot out of your knuckles real quick with this. So you have to have something you can get a hold of. If it's too small, too loose, or whatever, you're not going to be able to do it right. Okay, so I liked this J because I could make a fist and put it right there on the end of that knuckle. There's nothing on either side of it, see? Now, you want to angle up steeply. Don't do this, do this. Remember, you're shaving. Think of it like that, like you were just going to skip a rock on it. If that was a layer of water, you want to hit it at such a shallow angle it would skip. Okay? So we're going to hold the stone up like that. See if I can get the right angle on this. And we're going to hit. We're going to hit down here on the bottom and give as much as possible. See? I'm getting sparks on it. See those sparks? Those sparks are those tiny little grains of sand, so to speak, of high carbon steel that are superheated. They're going to fly off. Now we want to catch them onto char or char cloth. Now let us discuss that end. You're going to see out in the movies and things of people that you've watched online, you're going to see these kinds of tins pop up. Okay? These are historic char tins. That's what was used back in the day. Okay? Now let's start with, say, this one. This one will have a tight-fitting lid that you will open up, and in it I've got a piece of char cloth and I've got several other tinders. Okay? The way that this was used was in here would be pre-charred material, like char cloth. And we're going to get to that in a second. Or bits of char coal from my fire. This is where you've had a fire going. While the fire is going, you have taken some of the hot burning, it's black, it's burning, char, and you're going to bury it in the ashes. Tomorrow morning when you get up, if it hasn't rained or whatever, you're going to fan away those ashes and pull out that char, those pieces of charred wood. We're going to take that big piece of wood that is charred and you're going to take and scrape off some of them big hunks into this tin. Now this lid seals to smother. So if you still got a glowing coal, when you close that lid, there's not enough oxygen, it'll extinguish it. Okay? To utilize this, you're going to create your bird's nest out of some real small, fine, fluffy material like jute. Okay? And then you're going to open this up and you're going to strike those sparks in here. Let them just shower all in there until something catches. So that piece right there goes to glowing. I fish it out, I put it onto my bird's nest, I grab that other piece that's also glowing and put it on the bird's nest, and I close this to keep this and let that smother. And then I go over here. Now I have a live coal in my bird's nest to wrap around and blow it to get it to come into flame. So flint and steel creates a coal. Okay? This is a char tin. Okay? This one, same idea, is a char tin. Again, it is a friction fit lid. This one I got packed full of tinders. But the object of the game is you would have this full of charred material or char cloth. Notice this is thicker. Okay? Now finally, this is a Ted Cash, and this one has a burning lens in the middle of it. The burning lens allowed me to put char in here, and I could flip this over and focus the sun's energy without having to use the flint and steel and set a couple of pieces of those back to glowing. Okay? Just a light, after you got it going, little plug, so it went to glowing like the end of a cigar or something. That you would then fish out to put into your tinder, your bird's nest, and blow it into flame. Notice how thin this is. See? This was used with char cloth. Okay? Now all char cloth is, and this is one of my char tins, it's just a steel tin with a little bitty hole to let the smoke come out. inside of it I have char cloth. Char cloth was really, really expensive. Now what this is cotton material that has been burned inside of this chamber without oxygen. So it turned into carbon, okay? This will catch a spark and therefore become a coal and go to glowing, right? Cloth back in the historic time period was the most expensive of it, and people with means could afford char cloth. For a poor man like me to have char cloth, well, cloth was so expensive, I either bought clothing and I wore that clothing till it wore out, till the armpits were out of it. There were just huge holes in it. It is ratty. And then I would recycle it into the next phase. My wife may take one of my shirts that's now just too dirty and nasty to wear out in public, and she would take it apart and re-sew it into a shirt for a child or something like that. When that wore out and it wasn't even good enough for that, then it would be recycled over and maybe it became liner in a bag or liner into something else, or become small gather pouches for various sundries we're keeping on a shelf. When it wasn't any good for that anymore, then it would become a cleaning rag. Maybe I used it as gun patches for my gun or for cleaning my gun. Those gun patches, if I saw them lay on the ground after I fire, I would pick them up and I would rub gunpowder back into them and use them as touch cloth, as a fire maker. The very last possible use of it, when it wasn't any good for clothing, it wasn't any good for a cleaning rag, it wasn't any good to make any kind of bag or sack or whatever, the only thing left to do with it was char it and make it into char cloth. You can see why the average person didn't have char cloth. They had char from their campfire, burned wood. And that little thin one that I just showed, that burning lens, that's a rich man's Zippo right there, because he could afford to have char cloth in there. The average person would have a thicker tin because it would have char in it. That's the reason you look at this one and it's char, bigger tin. This one being the best one of it, and it's also a Ted Cash, and that lid's so good and tight fitting, that way I could use it. Now if you remember the movie Jeremiah Johnson, this is the one he's sitting there and he's striking, trying to get sparks down in here, and then the big old hunk of snow drops and puts it out. Redford and them didn't understand the full concept. They knew that's what it was used for. They just didn't understand you're supposed to take it out and make it. So they just set it on fire and had to have flames. They didn't understand how to do it in that movie. Okay, but that's what this was for. This was to extinguish it and keep the char good. So when I built my next fire, I'd resupply my char. Okay? Now, char cloth. Let's take a couple pieces out of here of this. Char cloth will catch a spark. And a way to do this is I'm going to take my fire steel, and when I hit it right here, sparks are going to go up and forward because they're tearing off and kind of spiraling this way away. Okay, so I want to put my char cloth sticking up above it. There's the edge, so that when I hit it, the spark's going to go up there and land on it. See, I want it to just stand up right behind it. Now whenever I hit it, the thing about it is you got to get a rock that you can hold in some way without banging your fingers. Okay, that's the reason bigger is better. Now when I hit this, making sure that ain't going to come out on me. Okay, you can see those little glowing edges. Give them just a little bit of air and it'll grow larger and larger. But that's what we're doing. But you see that quick that's going out? I'm in 79% humidity right now. Getting it down. You saw it catch. I had sparks and it goes out. That's one of the challenges with any of these primitive methods. Even though this char cloth caught that spark and you saw that array of sparks on there, it didn't run the whole thing. See, it can be frustrating to do it. what's the humidity, etc. Now you're going to see a lot of guys demonstrate these online. They're going to get one hit, bam, it glows like crazy. See nothing to it. I bet you he's in the desert where it's 20% humidity, or he's in California where you can have a dirty thought and have a damn spark, catch woods on fire. But in any kind of eastern woodlands and humidity, or up there near the Great Lakes, a lot tougher. Now, like I said, I used this for 25 years. We learned to cheat. It's the only way you could do it and guarantee it. We would take our char cloth and make sure it was bone dry. We would pull it out of the can and we would seal that can up. We would not let air back to it. This char cloth is about 10 years old. We'll be making new char cloth. Newer, fresher, drier char cloth has a better chance. But even with this generating all those sparks, it went out. Because the humidity is so high, it puts it out. Okay? Now another little trick that they do is one of these. That's a charred cotton wick going into a tube. Okay? You strike and get sparks onto the end of that, and then it glows. You let it pull out enough like that and you flip it up, see, so that that charred end will go to glowing like an end of a cigar, and then you wrap that around your tinder and blow it. Now this will work a little bit better. Let me set it down and let me hit my stuff and throw sparks on it, and I'll see if I can get it going for you. See it? Big old coal. Now, see? Now to smother that, I just got to pull it back down inside that tube and it'll smother. Ain't enough air up in there. So, flint and steel can be used as a fire starting tool. But understand your weather conditions can greatly affect how your success rate is. Now if I was out here right now sweating my butt off working a bow drill, I'd have the same result. You saw that big glowing coal. That coal's that far across. Wow. That far across, and I'm holding that dry jute on it and it starts to glow and it goes out like that. The humidity is so dense around me right now that I couldn't get a fire going with a bow drill or flint and steel right now because of that humidity. These can be a great deal of fun. You can practice with them, learn the trick, but just realize they're best in dry conditions and they're best in low humidity. Hope this helps you guys. Please put any questions or comments down there. I'd really appreciate it. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.